Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It's already been done. Can't steal that one. It's Lodi coming at you live and loud for Lodi'S Licks. I think it's episode number 40-something. Hadn't done one of these in a while, and so I'm getting emails and phone calls. When are you going to do another Lodi'S Licks and inform us of what's going on in Lodi land? Well, I kind of made that up, but one or two people have asked me, so here I am catching you up on all the current and past events going on in Lodi world, in Lodi world. Wrestled last night, Orangeburg, South Carolina, CWA. Special attraction on the show. We had the small people. The promoter referred to them as midgets. I told him that was not correct. And I was like, HR! HR! You can't call them midgets. They're small people now. They put on a great short match. It didn't go very long. I heard they had a small fee, and maybe we'll bring them back. The finish should probably make Scotty 2 Hotty mad. You know, Scotty 2 Hotty used to do the worm. The finish was something like an inchworm. Okay, enough of the small people jokes. I won't beat up the small people jokes anymore. But anyway, great turnout last night in Orangeburg, South Carolina for CWA. Place was packed to the rafters. I'm telling you, the building was packed. It was one of the biggest shows I've worked for them this year, and it was impressive to see that. Next weekend, the dates, November 19th, Lancaster, South Carolina, Buford Middle School, Lodi returns to Lancaster. Or if you live there, Lancaster. If you're not from there, it's Lancaster. Whatever you want to say, you know what I'm talking about. Lancaster, South Carolina, November 19th. Then November 20th, yours truly, the Lodi Monster, comes back to Charleston, South Carolina for old school championship wrestling. Doing a benefit for a coach down there at a high school over in Goose Creek. Goose Creek? Who's Creek? Goose? Grey Goose? No. Lodi doesn't drink anymore, so I can't talk about Grey Goose. That's not happening. Should be a great show. I'm there. The Barbarian's there. That Box Boy Scholar's there. I'm trying to think who else can be there. Loaded Guns. Ken Magnum's supposed to be. I don't do the Loaded Guns thing. That's what Ken Magnum does. He does this little and since he thinks it's cool when I say Loaded Guns, I have to throw it in there. And speaking of old school championship wrestling, there are a couple of guys on the indie circuit who are taking it upon themselves to dish out some old school justice, they want to call it. And the guys are trying to make indie wrestling better. And anybody that wants to make our business better, I have to applaud them. How are they going to make it better? Weeding out bad promotions. Weeding out bad wrestlers. And if you know anything about indie wrestling, they got a lot of work to do. Especially in South Carolina. You boys want to bring that up to North Carolina? You could have a field day with some of these backyarders we have up here. I'm not going to go for my soapbox and ramble and rant because nobody wants to hear it. It's all been said. If you think you look like a backyard worker or you work like a backyard worker, you've never been trained correctly, you have bad gear, your body looks like you've never seen the inside of a gym, maybe you're in the wrong business. It's called the Burger King theory. If you want to know what it is, ask me about a show and I'll explain the Burger King theory. Enough with the old school justice. I want to talk more about that later. Not tonight. I'm making this quick. I don't have much time left. If you want to follow the Lodi Monster on Twitter, /Lodi1Brad. Same thing on Facebook. The official Lodi page is /LODIRULZ. Lodi Rules. For all the happenings on Lodi. My Lodi Facebook page, Lodi /Lodi1Brad. It's more personal stuff. Don't put a whole lot of wrestling things up there, although people like to tag my wrestling pictures and stick them up there. So you'll get a little bit of wrestling stuff there. Chuck Norris once took an entire bottle of sleeping pills, and it made him blink. I'm a big Chuck Norris fan. I love my Chuck Norris jokes because, you know, after all, Chuck Norris is the man. Chuck Norris once had a bet with Superman, and the loser of the bet had to wear his underwear on the outside. I think we know who won that bet. Let's wrap this thing up. What else we got going on? How about the Republican debates? I think there's 12 of them left. You got your front runners. You got Herman Cain, brother by a different mother. You can't get a better last name than Cain. And then your old standby Romney, who's just standing by, standing by, standing by. And the third guy's probably Newt Gingrich. Smartest out of the bunch. As someone said the other day, probably the only adult in the room when it comes to all of the candidates. Maybe too much baggage to be elected as the Republican nominee, but he's smart, he's intelligent, he's tough. And as one friend of mine likes to say, she likes him because she thinks he'd be tough with all other countries, and I don't want to be friends with the president. I want him to be tough. I don't want him to be... I'd rather him not have a background as a community organizer and that be it. But before I go back up on another soapbox and start rambling, I'm going to move on. A couple of quick things. Did you realize how I couldn't come up with a third one for a second? If you had to see that again, 1, 2, and the third thing is Rick Perry. Penn State travesty. Talked about it on Facebook. Don't want to go into detail. Ugly, 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 and only going to get worse before it gets better. Sick, disgusting, does not begin to describe what's going on up there, and God bless all the victims and be with their families and everybody that's adversely affected in this national tragedy. And I say national because it eclipses football, it eclipses sports. It's something much greater and worse. Thank you to all the veterans, all my fellow veterans. I like throwing that out there because, yes, I served in the military. Thank you to you guys who keep our country and our freedoms safe so I can go out and wrestle on the weekends. I did my part a while back. I was in the Army Reserve, served a year on active duty in Desert Storm. Luckily enough, didn't have to go overseas. Got to stay stateside the whole time, so I was one of the lucky ones. But for you guys that are former military, current military, I humbly say thank you. I appreciate your service. My Dallas Cowboys won today. How you like that? Romo going off. Panthers, not so much. This Lodi'S Licks, a big comeback after a break. I was trying to be better about being more reasonable, about getting these things up like once a week or once every other week. Forgive me, I've been busy. I'll do my best. So it is written, so it shall come to pass. Enjoy every breath you take. You never know when it'll be your last. Many have come before you. They've all fallen like fools. When it comes to hardcore wrestling, it's plain and simple. Lodi rules. God bless you, everybody.